Tournament poker can feel like 4 completely different games packed into one event. At the beginning, you have a deep stack, the blinds are tiny, and everyone has plenty of time. A few hours later, the blinds have grown, the antes are meaningful, and suddenly every pot matters. Then you reach the bubble, where half the table is trying to survive, the big stacks are attacking, and the short stacks are staring at the tournament clock like it owes them money. Then you're down to just a few tables, and you're having to adjust to the dynamics of changing table sizes and laddering. That is what makes tournament poker difficult. The correct strategy changes by the hour. A hand that is an easy call with 80 big blinds might be a fold with 20. A hand that is a standard raise early might become an all-in later. And a decision that is profitable in the early levels might become a mistake near a major pay jump. So today we're going to simplify tournament poker strategy. We'll talk about stack depth, rising blinds, aggression, short stack play, bubble pressure, ICM, and how to adjust as the tournament moves from the opening levels to the final table. This is Tournament Poker Strategy Made Simple. Roll intro. Hi everyone, I'm Old Man Chris, and this is GTO for OMC. I'm bringing you along on my journey to learn game theory optimal concepts and simplify them for beginners, recreational players, and old man coffee players just like me. Let's incorporate these concepts into our game so we can crush cash games and run deep in tournaments. Tournaments are different from cash games because the environment never stops changing. The blinds increase, antes are part of the equation, stacks become shorter, tables break, new players are introduced, and eventually, payout pressure begins to affect every decision. The goal is to make profitable decisions while adjusting to stack depth, stage of tournament, opponent tendencies, and payout pressure. Today we're going to talk about how to make these profitable decisions and then wrap things up with 7 common tournament leaks as well as another OMC cheat sheet. So let's begin with one of the most important tournament concepts, thinking in terms of big blinds. In a tournament, your chip count by itself doesn't tell you much. A stack of 60,000 chips might be huge in the opening levels. Later in the tournament, it might be only 15 big blinds. That's why experienced tournament players measure stacks in big blinds, and they always know how many big blinds they have at any given moment. It's pretty self-explanatory, but to calculate your stack in terms of big blinds, divide your chip count by the current big blind. If you have 60,000 chips and the big blind is 1,000, you have 60 big blinds. If the big blind goes up to 4,000, that same stack is now only 15 big blinds. You didn't lose a chip, but your strategic situation changed completely. As a simple framework, this is how I take into consideration stack depth. More than 50 bigs is a deep stack. Between 25 and 50 bigs is a medium stack. Between 15 and 25, it's a short to medium stack. And then below 15 big blinds, many decisions become raise or shove. And below 10 big blinds, you're often operating with a simplified shove or fold strategy. The first question you should ask every time the blinds increase is, how many big blinds do I have now? Now I'll be incorporating range charts from GTO Wizard into this episode to help demonstrate strategy. GTO Wizard is an amazing tool that's helped me solidify modern poker concepts. If you're interested in taking your GTO journey to the next level, click on the link in the description and get 10% off your subscription. Now let's talk about early stage strategy. During the early levels, stacks are usually deep and the blinds are small. That means you have room to play post-flop poker. You can open a solid range, you can play pocket pairs, suited connectors, and suited aces in position. And you can use position to win pots without risking your entire tournament. But deep stacks also create danger. One pair hands become less valuable when large amounts of money go into the pot. Pocket aces are still a great hand. Top pair, top kicker is still strong. But with 150 big blinds behind you, you should be cautious when a passive player suddenly wants to play for every chip on a wet board. The early stage is not the time to force action because you feel like you need to build a stack immediately. You don't have to win the tournament in level 1, but you sure as heck can lose it. The best early stage approach is this: play solid starting hands, use position, value bet weaker players, avoid unnecessary ego battles, and don't create massive pots with medium strength hands. Let's talk through an example, and we'll use this example as we discuss the different phases of the tournament. Blinds are 100, 200, a loose player in the cutoff raises to 600. You're on the button with 8 of spades, 8 of diamonds. With 100 big blinds, you have 20,000 chips. You would usually call or occasionally 3-bet small, perhaps to 2,000 to 2,400. Calling keeps weaker hands in and lets you play a manageable pot in position. You also have enough chips to fold on bad flops against heavy pressure, bluff or value bet favorable boards, potentially win a large pot when you flop a set. So in this example, you call, and the flop comes king of clubs, 7 of hearts, 3 of spades. If the cutoff makes a small continuation bet, you might call once, but if they apply major pressure on later streets, you can fold while preserving most of your stack. Okay, let's turn our attention to antes. When antes are in the mix, there is more dead money in every pot. That means stealing the blinds becomes much more valuable. Suppose the blinds are 500 and 1,000 with 1,000 big blind ante. Before anyone receives cards, there's already 2,500 chips in the middle. That creates a greater incentive to raise from late position. If everyone folds to you on the button or cutoff, you should generally open more hands than you would without antes. Why? Because winning the pot uncontested adds meaningful chips to your stack. Antes also make defending the big blind more attractive because the pot is larger and you're receiving better pot odds. But remember, better pot odds do not give you permission to defend every hand. You still need to consider your opponent's position, raise size, stack depth, and how well your hand plays after the flop. Moving on to medium stack strategy. Medium stacks are where many tournament players struggle. With 25 to 40 bigs, you still have enough chips to play poker, but not enough to make careless calls. You can't call every raise with small pocket pairs hoping to flop a set. You can't call with suited connectors simply because they look attractive, and you can't repeatedly raise, then fold away a large portion of your stack. This stack depth rewards aggression with a plan. You should open strong and playable hands. You should identify opponents who raise too widely, and you should look for good 3-bet or all-in opportunities. So let's go back to our pocket eights example. The cutoff opened, and with pocket eights, you're still going to be in the hand. Assuming you and the cutoff both have similar stack sizes of 30 big blinds, GTO Wizard likes a mix of raise and call. But when the cutoff has a healthy 40 big blind stack and you have 25 big blinds, well, things change up a good bit. GTO Wizard likes a raise 100% of the time in this spot. This is because the cutoff is going to be playing a wider range of hands and is trying to put pressure on your shorter stack. Your pocket eights are going to be ahead much more often than the scenario in which the cutoff has a short stack. Same hand, same opponent, same stage of the tournament, but different stack sizes call for different decisions. The key question to ask is this: what is my plan if I get re-raised or called? Don't put chips into the pot without knowing what comes next. This next section I know all too well: short stack strategy. When you fall below approximately 20 big blinds, your strategy should become more decisive. You have less room to raise, call, miss the flop, and fold. Every pre-flop call consumes a meaningful portion of your stack. This is why short stack tournament poker often involves more open shoving, reshoving over loose raises, raise calling with strong hands, and folding hands that might look playable but don't play well at shallow stacks. Small suited connectors lose value because you don't have enough chips behind to win a large pot when you make a strong hand. High card strength becomes much more important. Aces, Broadway cards, pocket pairs, hands that can make strong top pairs and perform well all in. Suppose you have 12 big blinds on the button with our pocket eights and everyone folds to you. Making a small raise and folding to a shove can be disastrous because you surrender a large portion of your stack. Open shoving may be the cleaner decision depending on the players in the blinds. Now suppose you have 7-6 suited. It looks pretty, but with 12 big blinds, its value is limited. You're not deep enough to call and chase straights and flushes. Here's the OMC takeaway. At shallow stacks, stop calling to see what happens. Raise, shove, or fold. Now let's talk about how fold equity is your friend. Tournament players don't need the best hand every time they move all in. They benefit when everyone folds. That's fold equity. Suppose you have 15 big blinds and shove from the cutoff with ace of clubs, 5 of clubs. You can win in 2 ways. Everyone folds and you collect the blinds and antes, or someone calls and your hand still has equity. That is why suited aces, pocket pairs, and Broadway hands can make effective shoving hands. But your fold equity changes based on the opponent. Against tight players who are protecting their tournament life, your shove may generate many folds. Against a player who calls too widely and who can afford to call with a marginal hand, your fold equity decreases. That doesn't mean you should never shove. It means your shoving range should become stronger and more value heavy. The best tournament aggression combines fold equity with hands that perform reasonably when called. Now let's turn our focus toward big stack strategy. If you watched my last video, you know that I recently won a Win Poker Daily tournament, and I got to experience what it was like being the bully with the big stack. A big stack gives you leverage. You can pressure medium stacks that don't want to risk becoming short. You can steal more blinds. You can attack players who are focused only on surviving. But having a big stack doesn't mean you should play every hand. One of the fastest ways to lose a big stack is to treat it like house money. The goal isn't to bully everyone blindly. The goal is to identify who can be pressured. A medium stack near the bubble may fold hands they would normally continue with because losing would put their tournament life at risk. A short stack, however, may already be looking for a hand to gamble with. You can't pressure someone who has decided they are ready to go all in. Here's the big stack rule. Attack the players who are trying to avoid risk, not the players looking for a reason to take it. Next is navigating the bubble. The bubble is where the next eliminated player receives nothing and everyone else reaches the money. This creates fear. Short stacks may stop playing. Medium stacks may fold hands that would normally be calls. I've heard players at the table literally say, I might even fold aces at this point. And because of that, big stacks may become much more aggressive. The mistake many recreational players make is tightening up so much that they guarantee a min cash, but they destroy their chance of making a deep run. There's nothing wrong with considering the money bubble, but don't confuse cashing with winning. Your strategy should depend on your stack. As a short stack, choose your spots carefully, but don't blind down to one or two big blinds waiting for aces. Your fold equity disappears as your stack becomes smaller. Remember our pocket eights example when we had 15 bigs left? You need to take advantage of high equity whenever possible. You're not going to get folds to all of your all-ins when you're down to 3 bigs. In fact, you're likely to get multiple callers, and your pocket eights become significantly vulnerable in a multi-way pot. As a medium stack, be cautious about playing huge pots against players who cover you, especially when shorter stacks are likely to bust soon. As a big stack, apply pressure to players who are folding too much, but avoid doubling short stacks without a reasonable hand. Next, we're going to talk about ICM, which is a critically important concept, especially in the late stages of a tournament. ICM stands for Independent Chip Model. It estimates the real money value of tournament chip stacks based on the remaining players and payout structure. Here's what is most important when considering ICM. Losing chips can hurt more than winning the same number of chips helps. Imagine 3 players remain. First place pays 10K, second place pays 6K, third pays 4K. If 2 players with similar stacks go all in, the player who loses is eliminated in third place. The winner gains chips, but the loser loses the chance to finish first or second. That creates a risk premium. This is why calling all-ins near bubbles and final tables often requires stronger hands than making the shove itself. The aggressor can win when everyone folds. The caller must survive the showdown. OMC translation: when payouts matter, calling off your tournament life requires a stronger reason than just applying pressure. You don't need to calculate exact ICM at the table, but you should recognize when payout pressure is significant. Let's put these concepts together with a hand example. The blinds are 1K and 2K with a 2K big blind ante. You have 36K in chips or 18 bigs. You're on the button with ace of spades, 10 of spades. A loose player in the cutoff raises to 4,500. What should you consider? First, stack depth. You have 18 big blinds, so calling would leave you with roughly 16 bigs and create a pot of more than 12K in chips. If you miss the flop, you may face a difficult decision with little room to maneuver. Second, the opener's range. The cutoff is loose and can be opening many weaker aces, kings, suited hands, and broadways. Third, fold equity. If you shove, the cutoff may fold many hands that have reasonable equity against you. Fourth, all-in equity. When called, ace-10 suited still performs reasonably against much of the loose calling station's range. So rather than flat calling and hoping to hit the flop, an all-in reshove may be the cleaner play. Now change one detail. The raiser is a tight player opening from under the gun. Same hand, same stack, different range. Now ace-10 suited may be dominated more often, and folding becomes much more reasonable. Same cards, different position, different opponent, different tournament decision. As promised, let's talk about the top 7 tournament leaks. Leak number 1, playing the same strategy at every stack depth. A 60 big blind strategy doesn't work with 15 big blinds. Leak number 2, calling too much with short stacks. You don't have enough room to call and see what happens. Leak number 3, waiting too long to become aggressive. A shove with 12 big blinds has fold equity. A shove with 3 big blinds usually gets called, maybe by more than one villain. Leak number 4, trying only to survive. Survival matters, but blinding out is not a winning strategy. Leak number 5, ignoring the antes. Antes make stealing more valuable. Leak number 6, playing too many hands with a big stack. Having chips doesn't make bad hands profitable. And leak number 7, ignoring payout pressure. bubble, and final table decisions are not identical to normal chip EV decisions. Now let's pull up the old OMC cheat sheet for tournament strategy. Deep stack, use position, play post-flop, and avoid overplaying one pair. Medium stack, be aggressive with a plan. Avoid loose speculative calls. Short stack, raise, shove, or fold more frequently. Preserve your fold equity. When antes are in play, steal more from late position and defend intelligently. As the big stack, pressure players who are afraid to risk their tournament lives. Near the bubble, know who covers who and do not blind yourself out. Facing an all-in, calling requires more caution than shoving, especially under ICM pressure. And the golden rule, your strategy should change whenever your stack, the blinds, the players, or the payouts change. Tournament poker is not just one game. It's a constantly changing series of decisions. Early in the tournament, you may be deep stacked and patient. Later, you may need to apply pressure with 20 big blinds. Near the bubble, payout pressure may change which risks are worth taking. And at the final table, every elimination can be worth thousands of dollars. The players who adjust survive. The players who adjust and accumulate chips give themselves a chance to win. If this video helped, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment. Which stage of the tournament gives you the most trouble? The early levels, short stack play, the bubble, or the final table? Leave your thoughts in the comments and we'll tackle tournament strategy together. I'm Old Man Chris, this is GTO for OMC, and remember, you can't control the cards, but you can control how you adjust. I'll see you in the next one.